All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about something that, let's be honest, could happen to any of us. Water damage. And it is so much more than just a puddle on the floor. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on what's really happening when water gets into your home and how the professionals fight back minute by agonizing minute.
You know, this is the question, isn't it? You see that tiny little stain on the ceiling and you think, oh, I'll get to it later, right? But here's the thing. That small leak is basically the first domino in a very fast, very destructive chain reaction. The real problem isn't the water you can see, it's all the water you can't.
And this slide, wow, it just lays out how scary fast this all happens. We're talking minutes, and that water is already soaking deep into your drywall, your wood studs, your insulation. Then, within just a few hours, things start to physically change. Drywall swells up and sags, wood starts to warp. And then, the big one, in as little as 24 to 48 hours, mold starts to grow. Time is absolutely not on your side here. So why does this even happen in the first place? You know, it's not always some huge hurricane or massive storm. A lot of the time, the enemy is already inside your walls, or right under your feet. Let's take a look at some of the most common causes to really understand what we're up against.
For so many homes, especially the older, more historic ones, you're basically living with a ticking time bomb of old pipes. I mean, that cast iron or galvanized steel plumbing that was put in decades ago, it wasn't meant to last forever. It's silently corroding from the inside out, just waiting for the right moment to burst and dump gallons and gallons of water where you least expect it.
Now here's something you might not even think about. The threat can come from the ground itself. In places with heavy clay soil, water just sits there. It doesn't drain away, so it builds up and creates this incredible, constant pressure against your foundation, just pushing and pushing, trying to force its way through any tiny crack it can find. And then, of course, there are the big threats that you have pretty much zero control over. If you live near a river, you're always at risk when there are heavy rains. And in a lot of cities, the sewer systems are old. They get overwhelmed, and all that nasty, contaminated water has to go somewhere. Unfortunately, sometimes that's back up the drains and right into your home.
But here's the thing. The initial flood is really just the beginning. The real, lasting damage comes from what the water leaves behind. We call this secondary damage, and honestly, it can be way worse than the original water itself. This quote from our source material just says it all, doesn't it? In a humid place like Pennsylvania, it takes just a day or two for mold to get a serious foothold. It's not a possibility, it's pretty much a guarantee. That moisture creates the perfect little petri dish for something you really, really don't want sharing your home. And this is the result. When moisture is left unchecked, it triggers this whole cascade of failures. We're talking about wood rot that can literally compromise the structure of your house, hardwood floors that warp and buckle, paint and wallpaper peeling off the walls. And it doesn't stop there. Pests are attracted to the dampness, and you get that awful musty smell. It's a total, systematic breakdown of your home.
Okay, that sounds pretty grim, I know. But there is a way to fight back. And the pros? They don't just show up with a mop and bucket. They follow a very precise, scientific plan to take a home from a state of total crisis back to a state of control.
So first things first, you have to understand this key difference. There's mitigation and there's restoration. Mitigation is the ER visit. It's stopping the bleeding. It's all about getting the water out and drying everything to prevent more damage from happening. Restoration, that comes later. That's the rebuilding phase, where they repair everything and put it all back together.
And this is basically the pro playbook. It's a three-step process. It always starts with that immediate emergency response. Get in, assess the damage, get the standing water out. Then, you move into the most critical phase, structural drying and constant monitoring. And only when that structure is proven to be completely dry does the final reconstruction even begin.
And I really want to zoom in on this drying phase, because this is where science truly separates the pros from the amateurs. It's not about just pointing a few box fans at a wet spot and hoping for the best. No, it's about literally manipulating the environment inside your home to force the moisture out.
So let's just compare for a second. The DIY approach, you've got some box fans. The pros, they're bringing in industrial-grade air movers and dehumidifiers that can pull gallons and gallons of water out of the air. You might touch a wall and guess if it's dry. They use moisture meters and thermal imaging cameras to find every last pocket of hidden moisture. The result? A certified dry, mold-free home versus, well, a huge risk of future mold problems.
Not all water is created equal either. The pros actually classify the water itself, which is crucial because it determines the entire safety protocol. Category 1, that's clean water from a broken pipe. Category 2, gray water, is a little dirty, but Category 3, or black water, that's from a sewage backup or a flood. It's seriously contaminated and it has to be handled with completely different procedures to keep everybody safe.
So how long does all this science actually take? Well, here's a dose of reality. For most homes, you're looking at 3 to 5 days. Yep, days. Anyone who tells you they can do it in a day is probably cutting some serious corners. It just takes time to pull all that trapped moisture out of things like wood and concrete. Patience here is what saves you from mold down the road.
Okay, so let's say the worst happens. You're in a panic, water's everywhere. You know you need help. What should you look for? How do you make the right call? This is your action plan.
Here's your checklist. First, and this is a big one, are they IICRC certified? That's the gold standard for this industry. Do they have a 24/7 emergency response? Because water damage doesn't happen on a 9-to-5 schedule. A huge plus is if they work directly with insurance companies. That'll save you so many headaches. And of course, make sure they have the right equipment and that they communicate clearly. You want a partner in this, not just some company.
And that all brings us to this final, really critical question. Just because a wall feels dry to the touch doesn't mean it's actually safe. True recovery, the kind that gives you peace of mind, isn't just about how things look. It's about a scientific, verifiable process that proves the moisture and the threat of everything that comes with it is truly, completely gone.